What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. We're gonna cover Valeos standard deck profile today, and so really this is the proxy play deck profile that I used against top deck heroes. So if you haven't seen that video, it's somewhere here and down in the description below. You can see those proxy plays that we had. It was a fun time, and honestly, do a little bit of the thought process and perspective that went into this. And so I'm gonna cover basically the winning image, how that winning image kind of came to be, and then the cards falling around it too. And also see this as more of a starting template too, because I'm gonna also talk some of the cons and some of the things that this deck also needs to like mitigate moving forward. So this is more of a fresh first rough draft in a sense. So let's dive into it. And so for the winning image with Valeos, he has 3 skills. So the first skill is Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1. Your opponent gets minus 5k until the end of the turn. And if your opponent's at grade 3 or greater, it is locked at that power. And so when you basically go first, you basically turn to their grade 2, whether it be a 9k or 10k body, into a 4k, 5k. And then you can start really hitting those magic numbers where if they got a trigger, then they're becoming 14k or 15k. And so you have to have that mindset where I need to make numbers around those just in case they get a trigger, or if the first initial battles can at least poke, and then the following after that can still hit if there's a damage trigger checked, right? That's one thing that comes to mind. So the other skill, it's really phenomenal actually. So when a unit attacks any unit, and it doesn't matter if it attacks Vanguard or Vanguard, but any time, you can actually once per turn swap 2 Vanguards and swap them. So that is key, because then you can promote more attacks and actually have the ability to take more cards out of your opponent's hand. So that's really cool. What we saw with Valeos and Giera, very similar to that playstyle, where each attack equal 1 card at least, or damage at that point, because even if they take a damage check, that trigger fear is no longer there, right? And so the third skill is really important too, is that this is actually where you discard a copy of the Vanguard, which is him, and you can actually call and also remove all of your Excel markers that you have, if you have any. That's not part of the cost, but it's part of the effect. So you do as much as possible. You can call up to 5 units from your drop zone into Rearguard Circle. So it's almost like a Grand Blue aesthetic. Some people saw it as a Megiddo effect, which definitely makes sense because it's kind of like the Valeos with Zero Dragons came out back in the show, definitely. But you could also see this as an Obadiah or Kakaitis kind of type of effect where you build your field at that point, especially when you have the other skill where it's Soul Blast a unit. That's another card for you to use, especially if you roll with it. So it's great for actually utilizing as fast as possible, but it could also help you kind of make a comeback in that sense too. Now, the key thing that I mentioned about the Excel gifts, Valeos does not have an Excel gift. So that was kind of like a bummer, to be honest. I feel like this deck needs the Excel gift. To be quite frank, one, it needs the hand advantage, because as soon as you ride to grade 3, it's nice to have the Excel gift give you another card to work with, and an Argo Force is much needed because we just don't generate advantage for free, right? And then the other thing is that the patterns of attacking, you have to rely on certain units to swap into to make really the best of your turn. And sometimes cards like Coral Assault, as you can see here, and of course like Galeas and Baragios, they get power-ups based on the number of units or rear guards rested. And sometimes when you don't have that Excel circle, it really makes it for awkward patterns that you don't get the full benefit of those units. So there will be a column or a certain unit that doesn't get the +5 or the +15k, depending on what unit it is, but then the other one will. And so you feel like you missed out. You're not really optimizing on all of your units. And Aqua Force, you want to optimize with that. And so this deck struggles with the Excel gifts, and with not having that, then you have less cards to be seen as rested at that point. And so the winning image is like, let's lock them at a certain power level. If we go first, let's be aggressive as possible, because Aqua Force has Temple, and you want to keep that Temple. It's as long as you have Temple, you're in a good position. But as soon as you lose it, you're really fighting an uphill battle. And I really preface with that with this deck, because I've noticed that, and you'll notice in one of my proxy play games with Filip, that honestly, as soon as I missed that grade 3 turn right where I couldn't ride grade 3, I just lost Temple. And even his skill to revive a field basically didn't really like save me. So that's one thing. And so there is Valeos, which is the main winning image of the deck, right? Lock them, multi-attack, swap, take advantage of that, rep as many cards back, and then you got like a skill that helps you recover some of your resources. So you could honestly guard early too. And that's what I noticed too. If you can commit some units, and even if they attack and give you damage, those riggers can be reused with Valeos as long as you have another copy. And so that's where cards like even Baragios and the new grade 1 that came out with a blue wave named Corvette. I'll talk with Corvette too. So Corvette has a phenomenal skill. Well, 2 of them actually. First one, if you have a blue wave Vanguard, it gets plus 5k. It's continuous. So it's a 13k booster, 13k attacker, really good unit to just have there, right? But additionally, the other skill is that when an attack hits or the attack that it boosted hits, you can actually check the top 3 for a blue wave card, add it to your hand, and then put the rest at the bottom of the deck. Kind of like a Gold Paladin effect, but you add it to your hand, which is actually really good for Aqua Force because you want to get as many resources as possible, especially if you can get it for free in that sense. So it has the on-hit pressure, and so you can honestly kind of rely this on the early game where maybe you don't be as aggressive, or you could use it aggressively too. There's actually where you can call this to rear guard, and then you can ride the grade 2 blue wave unit that we got and Galia. So Galia is really good because his Vanguard circle skill is that when he attacks, you can counterblast 1, restand a blue wave unit. And so that way, if you attack with Corvette, you get a chance to potentially hit, try to get a potentially search right there. Then you can attack with the Vanguard. The Vanguard doesn't even have to attack Vanguard. You can attack even a rear guard. So if you want to go that route too, you restand the Corvette again, and now yet again you have a chance with Corvette to hit it again. And if you have a booster or you got a trigger in that point, then the Corvette is going to also have more likely of a chance to actually hit. Hope that makes sense too. And the other skill that the Galia has is that at the end of the battle, if your opponent's Vanguard's at different power levels, and I think there's a grade 3 restriction too. Yeah, our grade 3 Vanguard. But point is the power indifference, right? And so at the end of the battle, you can Soul Blast 1, swap with the unit in the same column with it. And so you can put a card like Coral. So for example, Riptide over here as a beater just to swap in and promote those attacks and really just take advantage of that. And you can pair it along with Valeos where you can have something attack, swap it with the Galia, then the Galia attacks, then swap it with the unit, and you have like basically 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks depending on how you play it out too. You can get to 8 attacks too. So if you have with certain cards like LAS for example too, and I'll explain a little bit of that too. But that's the core that came out with this clan selection, and now getting it to work with what we got was really the key question. The trigger ratio, I'll start with that because it's the easiest to knock out. We want aggression with draw advantage, and the PG draws are still good. If you want to do critical sentinels, and you might have a rough time. The PG draws are very, very helpful. And then of course, if you're facing against clans that have very high numbers, or in my case, Shiryuki, where they reduce you so low that really makes it hard to guard at that point, that PG is really appreciated at that point too. And you know, with the grade 3s, there was a thought like, do we want to write another grade 3? And there was a discussion of, with me and Force of the Ocean, a lot of those people helped out with coming up with a quick build, but also, you know, just thinking like moving ahead is that maybe like a card like Last Card Revan would be a better choice to write as your first grade 3 turn. I know Zay was really a proponent of that, which I agree, and it makes sense too, because you get an XO marker and then the flow of Revan actually works really good when you write a first grade 3 turn, right? This card can kind of help finish that gap. But what's really annoying too is that it's like you really benefit of the power lock when your opponent's like at 3, 4, 5 damage or something like that. But as you get closer to 5 damage, then it doesn't matter because they have to guard everything. So what's the point of a damage trigger? Unless they got a 6 heal damage heal, but you know, if your opponent's at 3 or 4, then you're like, all right, I'm gonna lock you and I'm gonna hit you really hard, and I don't even care if you got triggers because they don't work. That's what I thought the benefit of Valeos is there for, right? And so the other cards that I thought about too was Savas Lambros. You can do that first grade 3 turn, get 2 Excel gifts, really take advantage of that, and then next turn you can ride Valeos, and then now you have 2 Excel circles to work with, and you got a field to work with. That seems a lot more threatening. So it's like a setup turn, first grade 3 turn, and then you can go into Valeos as the finisher. I feel like Revan might be still the better choice without changing a lot of the rest of the deck, because with Lambos and Davos, you need those 2 cards for sure, and if you want some consistency behind it, you may have to play cards like Nikki or Dennis, for example, to recycle and stuff. And of course, you have to rest. As you notice, there is no resters here, so there's no Agias, there's no Pursuit Assault, any other skill. You know, Revan, for example, if you do Ride, Revan can actually rest something, and that works in that respect too. So in this case, when I did the proxy play, I chose Riptide. So Riptide is there because he's a 32k beater. Wow, 32k beater when he can attack, and he has to be 4th battle or more. because of the nature of you swapping units and actually getting multiple attacks, you will hit the 4th battle pretty easily in this deck too. So Riptide just made more sense. Furthermore, cards like Barragios in the grade 1 lineup, we are playing 4 Barragios. One, because of the consistency. You honestly get real benefit of actually getting Valeos and Riptide into your hand. So one, you can use them right away, or you can even discard other cards or itself to further revive them back again anyway with Valeos' skill. So for example, if you're already on Valeos, Barragios gets you a second copy and you can discard whatever you want. You don't really neg, because then you discard the Valeos that you just grabbed with Barragios and then revive your whole field. So the synergy is really good with that. And so Barragios is definitely a 4F. And furthermore, you can dig for the Riptide, so that way you have that beater. So even if they got a damage trigger, if you went first and they're still grade 2, it's still gonna hit hard, right? And it's an excellent unit to swap with the new grade 2 Galia, for example. And then Coral Assault really goes into the same book where we have that beater, 24k, really solid dude. Not only that, but it can go into Soul and draw you a card back. So you can get some return advantage back for the field that you committed to from your hand, right? And any advantage is well appreciated in Aquaforce. And so that's why we have that. Not only that, because you have units like Valeos and Galia that Soul Blast, you're gonna need Soul. And cards like Coral Assault and even Narissa come into play where you can actually show Soul charge them with their effects and have that Soul for next turn as well. And what's even cooler is that if they're in the drop zone or you Soul Blast them and then get them in the drop zone, then revive them with Valeos' skill, they're automatically +1s in your hand at the end of the turn. So you're able to build up some hand advantage with that way too. So it's very beneficial card. That's why I played 4. And it just makes really big numbers. So the next grade 2 is Galeas, where this is the card we saw with Brabant. So when basically it sees your Vanguard attack and you have a grade 3 Vanguard specifically, and the power difference of your opponents is different than its original, then you can counterblast restand this unit. And then of course it has the fact that if he sees 4 more rested rearguards, it can include itself, it gets +5k. And so this helps with having a restander / little mini beater, and it just helps promote that many attacks as well. And so very key card. And so one of the plays you can do is really just be able to like do so many attacks. Then when your Vanguard attacks, you can restand the Galeas and make sure you can put all the triggers on there. Or if you feel like you're gonna get more triggers, like since you do Twins Drive, you could split the triggers with 2 standing rear guards, and Galeas can be the one that restands too, so you have that field set up too, while still applying pressure beforehand before the Vanguard attack. I hope that makes sense too. And at the same time, you can use certain combinations to really further extend attacks. So for example, if you have 2 Galeots, a beater like, let's say, the Corvette. So if you have Galeot and Galeos in one column, right? And you have a Corvette and then another Galeos in the same column, and then you have one Galia, a second Galia over here behind the Vanguard. What you can do is Corvette first battle, use Valeos' skill to swap Corvette behind the Vanguard and swap the Galia onto the front. Now that Galia can attack, Soul Blast 1, bring up the Galeas up. Then this other Galia that was just chilling still can attack, do the same thing, Soul Blast, swap with the second Galeas. Now you can have Galeas, then Vanguard, Counterblast 2, restand the Galeas. And so you have 2 more attacks after that too. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attacks, right? And so that was basically, I believe, 3 Counterblasts and 3 Soul Blasts because you're using Valeos' skill. So it's pretty doable. And then of course you can bring it down to 6 or 7 if that's not the opening field that you have. So little things like that, right? And furthermore, we have Narissa and we have the grade 1 Kama. So now the grade 1 slots kind of was a little difficult too, and we thought about restanders too in the grade 2's lineup, so that can also affect your grade 1 lineup. Grade 1s, you know, for example, we also are good. Penguin Soldier, we have options, but with the synergy of the deck, I felt like Narissa was still MVP in the sense of being able to feel the soul, being an extra body that you could work with. If your opponent's a Force Vanguard, it goes down to AK, so you can swing with Narissa and then swap it with Valeos' skill, and then you can just have it go into your soul and then get a card back it that way. So you can look at it that way and just really benefit from that too. And then of course, what happens, you know, when you revive it, you can get a +1 in your hand advantage because of Valeos' bringing it back from the drop, right? Calm Assault is a unit that helps push for higher numbers. So sometimes when you don't get the benefits because of the patterns that you have, where Coro needs to see 4 other units being rested, and Barragios needs to see 4 rear guards rested, and all that kind of stuff. You have that awkward position, like I mentioned already, and so Kamaso helps with those weird battles where it's third or fourth battle. You can help make up with that with the +5. It's a Soul Blast plus 5k for either of those battles, so you could do it twice in one turn. So you just be mindful of Soul. So that's why I attacked that guy in. You can also use this as a card to use even early on, like your grade 2 turn if you want to, or even your grade 1 turn. If you really go to that battle, more than likely your grade 2 turn is much more easier. Then you can Soul Blast your grade 1 that you ride with, and so when you go to Valeos, you counterblast Soul Blast the grade 2 out, and now you have the grade 1 and grade 2 at your disposal in the drop zone. And if you open with a second copy of Valeos, then you can just revive it. So you can do like really power plays like that. And so that was the mindset, to help fuel the drop zone, give power to your field, so you're minus 5k, and if they were locked, it does much more pressure, taking more shield out of that. And so that's really the whole mindset behind this build. And restanders like Terrific Coil, Tidal, so all those, you know, you can see it as giving it up more pressure. And what I found out, I feel like there might be some room with them too, but with Galia being a column swapper, or even a restander when it's written as Vanguard, almost like an Algos in a sense, it kind of makes up for that in the early game. And because we don't get the Excel GIF, we had to be very careful with the cards that we commit even early on, and the damage that we take in. And so one of the things that I was trying to do is guard early with weak attacks that I knew wouldn't hit, right? And so that way you're 1-2 counterblast during your grade 3 turn, and you can take advantage of the resources that you have and take some damage next turn, so you don't have to drop as much hand at that point. So it helps with that. And again, this deck doesn't even want you to rewrite because you get no Excel gifts, and so that's why that's why they had that effect where you could discard a copy, right? But I feel like we still needed that Excel gift. So moving forward as thoughts, I feel like Zan and a couple of the others in Force of the Ocean, I would agree with her thought process that maybe having this coincide with maybe like Rebon, for example, might be the best choice. I haven't tested it, but this is something that I cooked up right away for the proxy play. This is definitely some starting point for anybody that wants to take this, of course, and then tweak it to their liking and figure out something. I'm disappointed with the premium use of this because there's no Excel gift. And for premium Blue Wave, we really needed the name and the Excel gift to really make things happen for First Stride, Flood Hazard, for example. And we just didn't get the Excel gift, and I don't know. We had to wait for Tetra Drive retrain at this point and hope that has an Excel gift too. And so I didn't want this video to be too long, and I just wanted to flesh out the thought process behind it. I hope it make a little more sense, you know, especially if you guys have seen the proxy plays and you wonder like, why did he play that card? Or I saw he struggled with this, or, you know, has he thought of this, you know? And I just wanted to take this time up front where here's the deck profile, here was the thoughts, this is why we did it this way. Again, we came up with this on the same day Valeos came out, and we recorded it probably like 10 hours later or 8 hours later. So there was only so much to do in practice, and I was working at the time too. So it's not like I have 8 hours to like play test this. I'm like, no, I didn't really have any much time at all. Maybe I took my lunch break to really get something together. So definitely, you know, if you like this video and you like to see more of this, especially my thought process when it comes to like proxy plays or anything like that, let me know in the comments down below, you know, and then also, you know, share this with your friends and then subscribe. So with that, amigos, see ya.